Sorry if I'm not screaming, Jan. I'll try. I'll try to enunciate for you and my mom. 1 Samuel 22. We'll read the first 10 verses. And the title of this is David. Or I wanted to say before we got started, John's not here, but John has taught 2 out of the last 3 weeks for me, and I'm very appreciative of him. His wisdom and perspective. He taught out of the Psalms, all about David, and he just has so much experience, and I just appreciate him being willing to step in and do that. I always get to listen to what he does, and he's always good. He's always very good. Last chapter, 2 weeks ago, was basically everything got taken away from David, all of his crutches. His wife, his military career, his position in the city, his position in the politics of government under King Saul. Saul tried to kill him. So he runs off to a cave. So David left Gath and escaped to the cave of Adullam. Soon his brothers and all of his relatives joined him there. Then others began coming, men who were in trouble or in debt, who were just discontented, until David was the captain of about 400 men. That's a big cave. Later, David went to Mizpeh in Moab, where he asked the king, "Please allow my father and mother to live here with you until I know what God is going to do for me." That's a fun verse to think about. Until I know what God is going to do for me. The faith that implies is super cool. So David's parents stayed in Moab with the king during the entire time David was living in his stronghold. One day the prophet Gad told David, "Leave the stronghold and return to the land of Judah." So David went to the forest of Hereth. The news of his arrival in Judah soon reached Saul. Did we change my sound? Oh, okay. That's echoey. Oh, okay. You probably can hear it, but 1 Samuel chapter 22, we're in verse 6. Leave the stronghold and return to the land of Judah. So David went to the forest of Hereth. The news of his arrival in Judah soon reached Saul. At the time, the king was sitting beneath the tamarisk tree on the hill at Gibeah, holding his spear and surrounded by his officers. "Listen here, you men of Benjamin," Saul shouted to his officers when he heard the news. "Has the son of Jesse promised every one of you fields and vineyards? Has he promised to make you all generals and captains in his army? Is that why you have conspired against me? For not one of you told me when my own son made a solemn pact with the son of Jesse. You're not even sorry for me. Think of it, my own son, encouraging him to kill me as he is trying to do this very day." Then Doeg, or Deog, the Edomite, who was standing there with Saul's men, spoke up. "When I was at Nob," he said, "I saw the son of Jesse talking to the priest, Amalek, son of Ahitub." Amalek consulted the Lord for him. Then he gave him food and the sword of Goliath the Philistine. Anything interesting in that? Anything stand out to anybody? Yeah. Okay. She's working on it. I don't know what else to tell you. Oh, I'll try. So David ran to a cave after losing everything that supported him in life. And the title of chapter 7 is "For Cave Dwellers Only." So it's focused on his time there in the cave. Some interesting things. He went to Moab, and he went to Moab to request of the king that his parents be left there for safety. Moab is significant because Ruth, the Moabitess, was his great-grandma. So he had ties there. This is, it's rough, my voice. Can you guys still understand me, or I sound bizarre in my head? More than normal. It's echoey? Yeah. I'm just giving you feedback, Deb. I appreciate you. I'm not picking at you. Are the monitors on, Deb? Oh, do I do that? I get it. That could cause echoey. It's still echoey. Yeah. You know, one thing that bears mentioning, I think every time, positive feedback from the audience, Deb. We're back into echo again. Negative feedback from the audience, Deb. Sorry. David was a man after God's own heart. And the Bible says that about no one but him. A couple of chapters ago, he went to a city to escape Saul and acted like a crazy man, scratching doorposts and drooling and acting like he was completely insane. Doesn't really resemble a man after God's own heart. And in the future, you know, his sin is one of the most famous ones in the Bible. But we have to continue to think about it, because the Bible says he's a man after God's own heart. Thinking about what makes him a man after God's own heart. What is it? He obeyed. Sometimes. A lot of the time. Yeah. Yep. He was teachable. Yeah, that's a good one. Obeyed and teachable. For sure. We'll get into more of it. But be thinking about that, because that is something that is absolutely worth striving for in God's own heart. No doubt about it. He searched for God? Yeah. Yeah. He was committed, and he searched and sought after it. Yeah, no doubt. And he had faith. Yeah, I like that line. He's like, can you help me until I see what God's going to do with me? How he's going to help me? If you guys are in something and it's troubling you, is your general attitude, I need to hold up until I figure out what God's going to do for me? Not to me, not at me, but for me, is what he said. That's pretty much after God's own heart, I think. The complete faith, the looking after, the obedience, the teachability. Yeah. Yeah, the shepherd analogy. Mm-hmm. So David had a spear chucked at him, stuck in the wall, and he took off. He had a near miss. They went to his wife's house. His wife lied. He forced me. He was going to kill me. Made it worse with Saul. And now he's in a cave. Now, in verse 2, his brothers and all of his other relatives joined him there. If I was running and had lost everything and whatever he was feeling, depressed, anger, sadness, resentment, whatever all those things. I don't want my family around me, right, in the cave. I need to mope a little bit, you know. But God sent a family there. And part of the reason why the dynamic that drove the family there, and it's all God ordained, is you're late, my love, my son. Yeah. All right. When everybody knew at this point that David was anointed king, next king over Israel, or they suspected it, whether they knew it or not. Jonathan knew it. A lot of people knew it. In those days, anybody who was a rival for the throne, everybody in their family got killed by the opposition. And so they're like, David is a pretty good warrior. He killed that big dude. He has really led some great missions for Saul. We're going to go stay with him. God seems to be on his side. We feel like we'd be safe with him. So I would have huddled up in the cave too. And like I said before, that's a big cave because it ended up 400 people there in a cave. I've been in Carlsbad. You could put 400 people there. Easy. Bitter, in debt, and what was the other one? Distressed. Yeah. I bet they would be fun to hang around. Yeah, no. So that's a motley crew, to your point. That is I said misfit in my prayer. Because there are people in this room, in this church, that are in debt, that are distressed, that are bitter, that are upset. And here we are. It's our cave. And Charles Swindoll does such a magical job of weaving this all together. The human view of what has happened to David is, I screwed up, I'm embarrassed, I messed up, I can't believe. And God is like, you're at the beginning. I've got you right where I want you. I'm getting ready to make you for your next leg of the journey that I have for you. Tough perspective to hang on to, for sure. And, you know, I got to make fun of Lisa. Hold on. Well, hello. Yeah. Thanks for coming even though you're late. You were later than Peter, I might just say. Sorry for that interruption. It's too... Everything was taken away from him.
But he doesn't sit there and go, wait a minute, I thought I was supposed to be here.
Right, right. No kidding. He doesn't play the pity card. No, I think you're exactly right. I can't find it anywhere if he does. Samuel runs through this time in his life like it's minutes, though. And it's years. Because if you look at, you train these 400 men, that doesn't happen. Miscreant, mischievous, angry, depressed, difficult people to deal with don't get trained into highly functioning battalion of warriors. Does anybody have any idea how long it would take to train them? I mean, it's not a couple of months, I wouldn't think. I would think a couple of years, to be honest. Because he influenced them in the way of warfare, of character, and of the ways of God. All of those things. He created David's men of valor, is what they're called, later on in the book. That doesn't happen overnight. You don't change you can change their, they can work out and they can learn moves in battle, but you can't change their character in a short period of time. And these were the people who surrounded him when he did become king and assumed the throne. So we're not talking about 6 months or a year here. And so he had a long time of not playing that pity card, to your point, Chris. And that's some strong character, because it's difficult to not to sometimes in our world when something goes wrong, when something goes awry. Any thoughts? Yeah, thinking about the mistreated, discontented, in debt folks. That just describes us in one way or another. Our Sunday school in Granbury, where we lived for a long time, our Sunday school was, the rest of the church didn't really like it, but our name was the Island of Misfit Toys from Toy Story. Yeah, because we fit the bill. And I think it's a good perspective to have. I mean, it's a funny twist on it, but it's a good perspective to know that you're a misfit. You need God's help. You're going to screw it up if left alone. And I think one of the main things that I've come to understand from studying David a little bit, he consistently turns back to God, no matter what. He hits the bottom. This gets taken away, that gets taken away. He turns back to God every single time. And that's got to be a big part of what is being a person, man or woman, after God's own heart. Because David's missteps are on display. And ours, in our own lives, or people close to us, are also on display. How do you handle the missteps, big or small? We're going to talk about that moving forward more. The land, this is Swindoll's words, the land was aching under the rule of Saul. And I wrote in parentheses, politicians. He overtaxed the people. He mistreated them. Does anybody feel mistreated by politicians or people in charge? I don't know about that. But on a personal note, Saul was self-absorbed, unstable, and I would use a modern term, narcissistic, to speak of Saul. And what he does in the rest of this chapter, I would say, is psychopathological. He's a psychopath, which is it envelops narcissism, but it takes it to a violent level. And that's one of the hardest diagnoses you can have. You really can't be repaired from being a psychopath or a narcissist. There's no repair for it. Thank you, Mom. Is that better? Okay. Now it's in my mouth. Peter. Are you worried about my narcissist comment, Peter? I am. Sorry, man. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, about, I think Netflix has a series on David.
Amazon. Yeah.
And when they get to the section of really looking at Saul, you can see like demons around him.
Yeah.
Possessing him. That, it wasn't particularly an affliction other than the devil playing with him.
Yeah.
To hopefully get rid of David.
Yeah. Yeah. And however that falls, I'm going to say some things. It's not demons, psychological illness, the culture war against people. Yes, okay? I see it all together, and it's not worth arguing whether they were demons or they weren't. But it's entirely possible that there are demons that affect people and their psyche, and this is the words we put to it today to try to understand. It's entirely possible. It could be that we're just so vulnerable to sin, we have a sin nature, and that we fall into that voluntarily, and the pressure of our culture manipulates and masterminds the pressure that creates that in us. And there's a lot there. It's a good point. There's a lot there. Whatever it was, demons or the pressure, his ego, the fame, the women, the unlimited amount of money, which is power. Eric said to me one time, you can tell somebody's character if you give them enough money. You'll see who they really are. And look at the Hollyweirds.
Devil being a chess player, knowing, the future of David, of Saul, knowing his weaknesses, and knowing, the ego.
He played him like a fiddle.
You could just see the
Yeah.
tune being played out, and a lot of the moves that were made for it. Saying, hey, this guy, you got to get rid of him.
Yeah.
He wants the throne.
Mm-hmm.
Every point of view can be.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, Peter. He is in the line. Yep. Oh, yeah, for sure. David was in the line of Jesus. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I imagine that would be a valuable prize to knock it out.
You mentioned the character of somebody, you can give them money.
Money, which is power. Yeah.
But you can also see the character of somebody if you take away their money.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of Paul. Please don't give me too much or too little. I don't want to steal or be greedy. Just right. And if you've been given too much or too little, there's ways to deal with it that don't make you either. It just right is awesome. Anyway, I could get lost on that. I'm going to read Psalm 57, a few verses out of it. And we're going to read a couple of Psalms, so if you keep your finger in there, if you want to not have to find it again. Oh, no, I want to read 142 first. I missed that. Sorry, 142. When I looked at that, I realized that I missed one. I cry out to the Lord. I plead for the Lord's mercy. I pour out my complaints before him and tell him all my troubles. When I'm overwhelmed, you alone know the way I should turn. Wherever I go, my enemies have set traps for me. I look for someone to come and help me, but no one gives me a passing thought. No one will help me. No one cares a bit what happens to me. Then I pray to you, O Lord. I say, you are my place of refuge. You are all I really want in life. Hear my cry, for I am very low. Rescue me from my persecutors, for they are too strong for me. Bring me out of prison so I can thank you. The godly will crowd around me, for you are good to me. Well, he lays it out, doesn't he? He lays out his vulnerability, not in a pity way. I don't hear it as that. I hear it as he uses the word refuge. We're going to talk a lot about refuge in the next half of the Sunday school. And how important it is to have a refuge of some kind. What are refuges? Give me your thoughts on that. Refuge. Place of safety. I remember a really hairy, we were sailing my brother's sailboat, and the motor had gone out, and it was night, dark as black, and we were sailing into a harbor full of boats except for one mooring ball. Completely vulnerable to the wind. We wanted that safety of that harbor so bad. We had been sailing for like 14 hours and just to get where we were going. Oh, we dodged a bullet. But refuge. As soon as we tied off, everybody fell asleep. What else? Refuge. All right. Psalm 34 basically says, I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. That's David. Turning back to God. Turning back to God. Turning back to God. Psalm 57 is him on his knees. He's praying to God. He says, I'm surrounded by fierce lions who greedily devour human prey, whose teeth pierce like spears and arrows, whose tongues cut like swords. Do you imagine he's talking about those guys in the cave with him? I think that's what this was written. Yeah, regarding the time he fled from Saul and went into the cave. So he's telling God, these guys are crazy. Their teeth are so sharp. They're so sharp, foul-mouthed and foul-tongued. And then in 34, I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. So God orchestrated him losing everything in the previous chapters, or allowed it to happen, or however that God's will works, to create the king, the next king of Israel, like Israel would never see again, a king like David, ever. Not that good, not that much prosperity, not that much land being had. And it took breaking him completely down to get there. And what did he send him in the cave? He didn't send him a fruit basket, or he sent him his family, which family's great. Family's also difficult. You know, it can be tough. They're the ones that raised you and you were raised with, and, you know. And then 400 miscreants. That had teeth that pierced like spears and arrows, and whose tongues cut like swords. Thanks, God. I appreciate this. Yeah, not that this isn't bad enough. This is the worst I've ever seen in my entire life. And now you send me 1,500 of these people, or 400 of these people? But it was part of the plan for him to stop looking at himself and invest in somebody else. Think about your life, your circle, your family, your friends. You feel like you're in a tough spot. What did God send to David? An opportunity to put his life, energy, love, and his love of God into these men. Had to be a big part of what made him who he was. So you want to become a great king of your castle, your kingdom? Things don't look like you're going your way. Say, God, help me hang here until I see what you're going to do for me, and show me how to do it. Who do I invest in? Who do I love? Who do I show your love to and your character to, and make a warrior? Evidently, that was part of the plan for David. This was written for us to read, to learn from. No pressure on David at all, right? So I was thinking about this. This is our cave, metaphorically speaking. Jim's our David. He's not David. But he's our godly leader. And we are his misfits. And under godly leadership, we can be turned into a fighting army just like these guys are. And Jim's got it. I trust him. I love the man. I pray for him. He's doing an excellent job. But you need to know who you are. You're not him. He's him. We're us. And I don't know how everybody feels about Jim, but I just have mad respect for him, you know, because he's got a tough job. He's got to deal with all of us miscreants. Oh, yeah, no, he's no less of a misfit than all of us, but in his own way. But he's got a position, God ordained, that is different than the rest of us. And that's why I said, yeah, no pressure on David, no pressure on Jim. Page 77 of the book, I'm going to read a little excerpt. So the title of this section is The Change, Why It Occurred, and the change in David. And there's three subheadings here. The first one says, because David heard enough to admit his need. And here's an example he gives of how that is, how that can take place in today's world. Some years ago, I read one man's moving account of his attempt to get a group of 14 men and women in the church to communicate with one another at more than a superficial level. So I imagine it was some committee that they were driving at something and they were just all superficial and they didn't, hey Eric, they did not, they just didn't communicate well. They had no depth to their relationship, and he needed that to accomplish. So that's, I'm sure, why he's doing it. Many of these people had been attending the same church for years without knowing anyone else's personal feelings about anything. In an effort to help them learn how to communicate with one another at a deeper level, this man suggested the various individuals in the group relate some incidents from their past that had helped form their personalities. So you guys think about events from your past that have helped form your personality, just briefly. Much to his disappointment, every one of the 14 related only positive experiences and feelings. Near the end of the session, however, one young woman began pouring out her feelings of insecurity, inferiority, and despair. She concluded by stating that all she wanted was what the other people in the group already had. The man says, we sat there stunned by the reality which had drawn us irresistibly toward this thin, totally unprotected young woman. It was we who needed what she had, the ability to be open, personal, honest, in a vulnerable way. As I looked around the group, I knew that somehow this theologically unsophisticated, honest woman had turned loose her silence and her pride and had reached out in total honesty that it was safe for us to start becoming one in Christ Jesus. She admitted her need. David admitted his need to God in the Psalms, in the cave. That's why he went there. He was very vulnerable. David also had a very good friendship with Jonathan, another person that he was incredibly vulnerable with. I can't emphasize enough. Family is good. You got to have, roots with your family. But Jesus said, who are my mother and sister and brothers? Those who do my will. Basically, spiritual connection is thicker than blood. That's the way I read that. A brother or a sister in Christ. I cannot overemphasize the importance of that for us to seek refuge, to have refuge. God uses people in our lives to be that refuge. Now, sometimes a refuge sends you stuff that you don't want, 400 miscreants, And that refuge, that person, Jonathan, what he did for David was told him the truth in his face, even though David could have killed him for it. So your refuge is good. They're not going to judge you, but they're also going to be honest with you and help you get what you need, get down the road. All right. I could ramble on. The important thing is, good friends can be a great refuge, and they're incredibly important. So number 2, he was honest enough to cry for help, and that's not easy to do. Who likes to be embarrassed? Who likes to say, man, I screwed that up? No, nobody. But you can't have the communication, the depth, You can't have the person create a refuge for you if you're a veneer. This thick. It doesn't work. And third, he was humble enough to learn from God. So we heard some of these things earlier about what makes David a man of God. He was humble enough to learn from God. This is such a fun analogy. I'm going to read from page 79. I have an old Marine buddy. This is Charles Swindoll. I have an old Marine buddy who became a Christian several years after he was discharged from the Marine Corps. Let me tell you, when news of his conversion reached me, I was wonderfully surprised. Shocked is a better word. He was one of those guys you'd never picture being interested in spiritual things. He cursed loudly, drank heavily, fought hard, and chased women. He loved weapons and hated chapel services. In the drill instructor's opinion, he made a great Marine. Anybody know anybody like that? Anybody know anybody like that in this church? But God, to put it mildly, he and God weren't on speaking terms when I bumped around with him. And then one day we ran into each other. As the conversation turned to his salvation, he frowned, looked me right in the eye, and put his hand on my shoulder and admitted, Chuck, the only thing I miss is that old fellowship all the guys in our outfit used to have down at the slop chute. That's a term for the tavern on the base. Man, we'd sit around, laugh, tell stories, drink a few beers, he said, and we'd really let our hair down. It was great. And then he paused. I just haven't found anything to take the place of that great time we used to enjoy. I ain't got nobody to admit my faults to, he said, to put their arms around me and tell me that I'm still okay. That's what we need to be for the world. We have to put our arms around people that are hurting. We have to create that environment for them. It's so important. And this church needs to be that. We are that. I'm not saying that we're not. But we constantly need to be praying for opportunities to do this for people. Because that, you can tell them about Jesus Christ till you're blue in the face and they're blue in the face. But that, what this is described right here, if we can create that, we can make a huge difference. We can bring people to Christ. We can get them in our cave with us and train them in being fighting forces. You know, David's men of valor. It's love. Yeah. That is a good predecessor to this analogy that Charles read in another book, and it's a lot of fun. It's the last little on page 79. The neighborhood bar is possibly the best counterfeit there is to the fellowship Christ wants to give his church. I'm going to read that again. The neighborhood bar is possibly the best counterfeit there is to fellowship Christ wants to give his church. It's an imitation, dispensing liquor instead of grace, escape rather than reality. But it is a permissive, accepting, and inclusive fellowship. It is unshockable. It's democratic. You can tell people secrets, and they usually don't tell others or even want to. The bar flourishes not because people are alcoholics, but because, and here's the linchpin, God has put into the human heart the desire to know and be known, to love and be loved. And so many seek a counterfeit at just the price of a few beers. It's unbelievable. I've never thought about that. But I was thinking, I have an angle. If I go to a bar, I can sit down and be like, you want to know, you want to love and be loved, you want to know and be known. I have the genuine article, man. I've got the real thing. It's interesting. Not that we're going to start, a new arm of ministry of the church, bar evangelism. It has crossed my mind, but cheers. That is perfect. I didn't think about it. That is perfect. Perfect example. You want to go where everybody knows your name, right? Yep.
For another analogy along those lines, what you're talking about is take a upstanding church in town, and everybody looks great on a Sunday, and then on Wednesday night they've got an AA meeting in the basement.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you, which group is more realistic? The ones that admit they're an alcoholic?
Hi, my name's David. No. Yeah. No, they're very realistic. Yeah. Um, in my days in the school for troubled kids, I led an addiction group, AA, NA, for a long time with a partner. Unbelievably real. Bill wrote an incredible book, and it's not the Bible, but man, it is a good helper for a group of people who are searching for something, no doubt. And if you infuse Jesus Christ Christianity in there, it can be an incredibly powerful tool, even by itself. But it's not complete without JC. So, but thank you for that. Yeah, no, you made a great point. I didn't mean to hijack it. Very real. Who's more real? The people in AA in the basement or the people in the pew on Sunday?
Another statistic you see sometimes is how many bars and how many churches are in a particular town.
How many on this island?
Yeah, exactly. And they're very close usually in numbers.
Yeah, interesting. I'm going to have to count that just to see. How many bars and how many churches in a certain area? And I said, how many on Pine Island? Somebody be counting it. Think it up and let me know we got 9 minutes. There are churches today that sell a counterfeit like a bar does. There are churches on this island that sell counterfeit like a bar does. Everywhere, not just this island. And it's sad. It's very sad. But they draw more people that way, you know? And when you feel good, you want to be there and you want to give them money because they make you feel good. The bar's got the feel-good appeal, that's for sure. And so do some of these churches that'll tickle your ears with whatever culture dictates as the new norm. What's the reality of having a refuge in another human being for you? And I would say man to man and woman to woman, because this is sort of the refuge I'm talking about. It's different than a male-female relationship. The marriage relationship is very different than it is that. It is that. But the male to male and the female to female relationship is what I'm specifically talking about, because it's what is highlighted in David's life, he and Jonathan. They had a bond that was beyond what was normal. I'd say it's 1 in 1,000, 1 in 100,000 what they had. And it's just rare. It's incredibly rare to have where you can be you can be vulnerable, you can just be you and not be worried about being judged, not be worried about. What do we worry about in relationships? Being embarrassed, being ashamed, being less than. I don't know. Yeah, Lisa.
In a situation this year at Pathways to Christ, there's maybe 24 women at one point, and we do prayers and praises, and the conversation was raw, it was real,
Yeah,
and it was an incredible group of women to share. There was no walls, just pure love.
that's highly unusual and wonderful
And even
that it was so transparent.
talking about it last week, where we're down to like 6 women, it's still, we were just in
awesome. I'm glad that was a good group. It was transparent. No walls. Thank you. Yeah, that's great. Refuge. We all need a refuge. We all need a harbor. I like the harbor analogy because I'm a boat guy. Say what? He can. I think you need to ask for it. You need to seek it. You need to seek Him first because He, Jesus Christ, is the number one refuge. Period. The end. Period. Dot. He's the one. But He has hands and feet in the form of us. And, you know, Scripture is an incredible refuge. If you dig into it, it will show you insights and it's God's primary means of communication with us. And I know I say that all the time, but if you're not reading the Bible, you're missing, I don't know what percent, 95% of what God can say to you, 90%, I don't know. It's the bulk of it, in my opinion. So get in the Word, even if it's just a few minutes every day. And God will give you a refuge in a human because He knows He created us to want to know and want to be known and to want to love and to be loved. And if you're not going to church, bar's a really, really great substitute. It makes perfect sense. I get it. Where else are people looking? The Moose, the Legion, volunteer this, that. I don't know. Those aren't bad things. None of them are bad things. We were built social critters, and Satan can use isolation. I agree. I think that's right. Psychologically, the most damaging form of abuse is isolation. There's not one that tops it. You beat somebody half to death, all the other things that are horrible, you put them in a closet and leave them there by themselves, they'll be more damaged than anybody else.
I think one of the strongest separation.
Separation. Similar to isolation. Yeah, for sure.
Isolation, you can do it in rejection.
Yeah, rejection, separation. That's a tough one too. Yeah, nobody likes that because we want to know and be known. That's the way we were knit together, to know and be known. Iron sharpens iron. That's another great one, yeah. We need each other to stay/get sharp. Great point. Psalm 31:1, David says, "In thee, O Lord, I have taken refuge." So he's the one. He's the man. He's our refuge. But there's a lot of other good options too that are God-sanctioned, that are here. In Psalm 31, there's 3 reasons why we need a refuge. Distress and sorrow accompany us. That's part of human life. It's a booger. We are sinful, and guilt accuses us. We spoke about that a little bit. It's embarrassing. It's my fault. I screwed it up. That comes with us as well. We are surrounded by adversaries, and misunderstanding assaults us. That happens a lot too. People can be, like Eric was saying, the rejection. People can be incredibly cruel. And if you think about misunderstanding assaults us, I think of gossip. Gossip. Which reminds me of a funny little joke that I'm going to close with. It would have been better if Adam and Eve were Asian. Because they'd have eaten the snake and we'd all be okay. I mean, no offense to Asians. I love their culture, and I've eaten snake over there. So, God bless this to us, our hearts. Help us to learn, to digest, and to put it into practice. And help us to seek each you first as a refuge, and then all the other resources you've given us. Amen.